Thank you. I don't own the rights to H-Town, so anybody can say it if they want. I'm going to read from a novel excerpt that I'm working on. Yeah. I'm going to like randomly skip around a bit, so if it seems like I stopped in a weird place and started again, that's why. Okay. All shut eyes ain't sleep. Anytime you know you're within the law, within your legal rights, within your moral rights, in accord with justice, then die for what you believe in. But don't die alone. Let your dying be reciprocal. This is what is meant by equality. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. Malcolm X. It was well into the night when shit went down. Every one of them slipping into the dark, blending in like they were meant to be there. The world would assume that their reasons for being out was just the same old, same old. They had always been folks that inhabited the night later than anyone else, fucking around and cutting up and living, as if their blood remembered what time it really was at home. No one was really looking out for them anyway, and those that were looking would no doubt find them in the morning. All in one night, from highways, traffic lights, overpasses, telephone poles, rooftops, ceiling fans, jungle gyms, subway tracks, basketball hoops, manholes, door frames, coat racks, bunk beds, stairwells, cabinets, bleachers. They hang themselves. On June 19th, the United States of America awoke to bodies decorating the streets like a janky string of paper dolls cut uneven and strung to a tremendous length. An accountant sleeping under his desk in the Empire State Building awoke to the sound of a steady thumping hitting against the window of his 54th floor office at 5:30 in the morning. The thumping came from the body of a man, skin black and smooth like a dark whetstone, dangling from an extension cord from 7 stories up, his eyes bulging, his jaw clenched shut like a vice. 1,200 miles away in Topeka, Kansas, a truck driver transporting aviation parts caused a 4-car pileup at 7 in the morning after slamming his brakes just short of a pair of women's bodies hanging from an overpass. The corpses were that of 2 sisters, their round noses and deep-set dark brown eyes the same. One sister's head slumped forward, her kinky hair not covering where her neck bones had broken the flesh. The other sister's head slumped backward, her neck not breaking as intended, her tongue jutting out, nearly gnawed off. The truck driver, a white man in his late 50s with a beard down to his collarbone, reached for his radio, both sisters' torsos only inches away from the angel statue on his foot. One body found in Wyoming by a sanitation worker at 9 in the morning was found in 2 pieces on the ground, like an uncorked bottle of wine, 4 other bodies hanging above it. The height from which it had dropped before the rope snatched back was enough to free it from its shoulders. The body was that of a 3-year-old boy, the bones still small, formative. On the St. Mary's campus in Notre Dame, Indiana, students gathered along the tree-lined avenue to see the bodies of strangers, classmates, friends, and roommates hanging in the trees. 36 corpses hung limply from the branches, the crisp summer leaves covering the tops of their heads like unwoven laurel wreaths. At Coney Island in Brooklyn, the police and news stations, along with park workers, counted a total of 196 bodies hanging from the drive rim and spokes of the Wonder Wheel before they began taking them down. In the process of trying to remove the bodies as gingerly as possible, taking great pains to ensure that they didn't get tangled up in the spokes, the wheel operator overheated the motor. The constant stopping and starting and the excess weight from the ride being over capacity by the additional 52 bodies made the motor give out. A crane had to be brought in when the fire truck ladders proved to not be tall enough for the bodies furthest away on the 150-foot Ferris wheel. On the other side of the country, after the sun rose in the Bay Area at 5:45 a.m., San Francisco PD and the Marin County Sheriff's Office cleared the Golden Gate Bridge of all traffic, then shut down both ends. Traffic reports warned drivers that the bridge was out of commission until further notice, without the exact reason being disclosed. Shit couldn't stay a secret the more the sun rose in the sky. Outraged drivers, news reporters, road workers, and the police were taking photos of the scene. As far as anyone could tell, thousands of bodies were hanging from the cables, towers, towers and deck of the bridge. It took over 3 hours for backup emergency services to arrive as the traffic was jammed for miles on either side. Apart from the people that had gathered to take pictures at the scene, there were a mass of cars parked on the shoulder belonging to the deceased that were preventing any of the cars on the main road from turning around. People were having to reverse, but with very little direction provided by the few officers on the scene on either side, getting out of the way was proving to be impossible. The bodies were in all different sizes, ages, and varying shapes. Sometimes they were found alone, sometimes in couples, sometimes entire families. Rich, poor, together, alone, one thing remained the same in every reported finding. They were always black. The whole damn country was losing its shit as reports, posts, photos, tweets, and headlines spread depicting a ceaseless amount of bodies found from end to end of these United States. All non-vital workers were advised by local law enforcement to keep their asses indoors. As the news spread throughout the country digitally and by word of mouth, there were those that flocked to the scenes, eager to see a real dead body, one that wasn't just on TV or in a casket. At first, they watched to save themselves, some savoring the excitement. For others, the sightings, seeming to grow with every passing minute, quickly lost their luster. Information overload forcing even the curious to find their fear, to reach for their own white and brown and tan necks, to wonder if they were next. Some obeyed the order to stay put, but it didn't matter. News feeds, tweets, direct messages, and Facebook groups were flooded with images of bodies hung all over the nation. A photo shared and viewed over 17 million times in the first hours was that of a young girl clinging to the body of her dead mama. She hanged herself in their pantry closet. When her daughter wandered into the kitchen in the middle of the night, hoping to hide the fact that she had taken some applesauce without permission, her mama wasn't quite dead yet. When social workers came the next day, the woman already under investigation for abuse, they found the girl clutching her mama's legs, tears running down her face, the ends of the woman's nightshirt and the top of her knees covered in upward smudges of applesauce. Everyone who had left their homes that day, and those that had not, were confronted with the corpses of black people hanging lifeless in the streets. In places like Biddeford, Maine, and Pocatello, Idaho, and Boulder, Colorado, many simply stumbled upon them while they were heading to work or the grocery store or dropping their kids off at school or running in the park or anywhere else they made their way out to for the day. In Mentor, Ohio, Patrice Sutherland, a retired librarian, discovered the body of Lewis Jones hanging from the light post right outside her duplex while stepping out to grab the paper. The people that lived above her, a woman with a baby and a man who wasn't the baby's father, had been evicted a month ago. So Patrice was the only person in the building to find Lewis strung up with his shoulders slumped low, his eyes open wide, and his head turned upwards towards the light, as if he had really seen something before he died. Patrice had known Lewis since he was a baby. She had known his mama, his daddy, his grandma, and his granddaddy too. Lewis's granddaddy, Logan, always said that Patrice was the one who got away. Patrice remembered it more along the lines of she couldn't get away fast enough. Logan was the kind of man that would drink until he wanted to sex or fight, and you could never be sure of which one he wanted until he was on you. Patrice knew he was like that even after he married her friend Willa Mae, and all the way up until he died. She didn't think of Logan's hardness now as she looked up at the body of his grandson, her hands clenched tight over her mouth, tears welling up in her eyes as she tried to understand why a sweet young man like him was dead. Lewis would always drop in to check on her whenever he was in the neighborhood. He was handsome and respectful and smart and talented. The boy played the drums in church as if he were the second coming of Tony Williams. While she couldn't remember his exact age, Logan and Willa Mae having so many grandchildren, she knew he couldn't have been no older than 30. She cried as she looked at him, knowing that this sweet young black man, who was more than twice her junior, was hanging from his neck in the street at a time when there weren't supposed to be sweet young black men hanging from their necks in the street anymore. Gonna skip forward. Emergency services were dispatched across the country. There were not enough cops, paramedics, and firefighters to handle it all. The federal government made sure that the National Guard was at the ready in the event that this was some kind of terrorist attack. They didn't want any more casualties. Within the first hours, after 89 bodies were found hanging from the Pleasure Pier in Galveston, Texas, someone from the Texas Observer referred to the incident as the Juneteenth genocide on Twitter, and it stuck. The hashtag Juneteenth genocide had become the fastest trending topic ever, with over 100 million posts within 5 minutes. The question of whether or not all those black people hanging across the country killed themselves, or did someone or something else kill them, was on every television, timeline, and tongue that was capable of sharing a thought on the matter. Many cried that it was just too soon to tell what exactly happened, while many others decided that time be damned. The truth about the incident needed to come out now, before it was too late, before whatever had come for all those black people came for everyone else too. Conflicting headlines were everywhere. The Texas Observer's tweet received backlash from the moment it was posted, the paper getting hammered for its usage of the word genocide. Millions of people in the country were Googling genocide and trying to understand why the Texas Observer had taken such a stance. Still trying to figure out why @Texas Observer decided that they can change the definition of genocide just because it sounds good. Here's a headline that's just as catchy. Hashtag summer suicides. Hey, @Texas Observer, suicide is not genocide. Would someone tell the idiots @Texas Observer that the Holocaust was genocide? This isn't hashtag genocide, it's hashtag mass suicide. Even Merriam-Webster hops into the fray. Genocide, the deliberate and systematic destruction of a racial, political, or cultural group, which prompted the Texas Observer to reply with, "Thanks for the clarification, @Merriam-Webster. With that said, we stand by our initial tweet, hashtag Juneteenth genocide." Thank you.